we go. You have the words of eternal life. Hallelujah.
This is the Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to you, O Lord. Then they took Jesus from Caiaphas to Pilate's headquarters. It was early in the morning. They themselves did not enter the headquarters so as to avoid ritual defilement and to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered, "If this man were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law." The Jews replied, "We are not permitted to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill what Jesus had said when he indicated the kind of death he was to die. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate replied, "I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here." Pilate asked him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked him, "What is truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no case against him, but you have a custom that I release someone for you at the Passover. Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" They shouted in reply, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was abandoned. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. And the soldiers wove a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and they dressed him in a purple robe. They kept coming up to him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," and striking him on the face. Pilate went out again and said to them, "Look, I am bringing him out to you, to let you know that I find no case against him." So Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." When the chief priests and the police saw him, they shouted, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. I was flipping through the channels the day after Thanksgiving, trying to find something good to watch in my turkey coma, day 2, and I came across The Wizard of Oz. It was right at the scene in the movie where the cowardly lion starts imagining what will happen when he finally gets some courage and then he can be king of the forest. Do you remember that scene? "If I were king of the forest." Feel free to sing along. But the lion sings, doesn't he, about all the creatures in the forest who will bow down and show respect toward him when he is king. And then, of course, his fellow travelers, Dorothy, Scarecrow, Tin Man, they dress him in a royal robe and they place a makeshift crown on his head. Can you picture it? The memory is so chiseled into my mind from my childhood. There's the lion dressed as a king, set against the backdrop of never-ending flowers and the beautiful green walls of Oz. And he's finally getting the respect he so desires because he's going to have courage. It's the perfect picture of a king, dramatic and regal. And it's what I was thinking of when I read this gospel story for Christ the King Sunday. Because here in John's Gospel, the picture of Jesus as king is quite different. Here's how the scene goes, with Jesus set against the backdrop of Jerusalem. First, Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. Then they put a crown on him, a crown of thorns, and dressed him in a purple robe. The soldiers kept coming up to him and mocking him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," and striking him on the face. When Pilate brought Jesus out to the people dressed in the crown of thorns and the purple robe, he said to them, "Here is the man." And they shouted, "Crucify him." Is it a strange reading for Christ the King Sunday? Only if we forget the kind of king Jesus was sent to be. Only if we lose sight of the fact that the courage, the faith Jesus had didn't lead to respect and adulation, but to suffering and death. And so today, for Christ the King Sunday, we hear a bit of the story about the trial of Jesus and of his punishment. Do you think it took courage for Jesus to stand there? He stood before powerful people, after all, religious leaders of the community, Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, soldiers whose job it was to put people to death. Jesus stood there and took their accusations, their insults, their very worst. I'm not sure if it took courage, but it certainly took a certain kind of humility, or a certain giving of oneself, an allegiance to something more, which for Jesus was, of course, his faithfulness to the will of God the Father. And so we celebrate Christ the King Sunday. We declare Jesus to be Lord, not because Jesus accomplished a lot of great stuff, but because Jesus accomplished just what he was meant to. That's what Jesus says a few short verses later in this story. As he is hung on the cross, under a sign they had written, "King of the Jews," in his final moment, Jesus said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head. It is finished. It is accomplished. God's merciful plan to rescue the world through Jesus, the Messiah of God, sent to the cross, breathes his last. Behold your King. That is the image meant to be chiseled into our minds and our hearts today of Christ the King. Not the King of royal robes and golden crowns and pomp and fanfare, but the King of humility and suffering. The King of the sinful and the hopeful, like you and me. This is the one we receive from God as Lord of our lives. This is Christ the King.